This is the Tech Phantom, and welcome to video number 7 of this walkthrough. We are playing Dark Souls for the PS3. We've downloaded the DLC and we're hoping to be able to explore it in a few videos from now. Alright, in this video we are going to be going in Blight Town, although that's not going to be very clear at the beginning, and I'll explain why. And there is going to be a little bit farming, guys, so I am giving you a warning ahead of time. I will let you know when the farming starts, and if you want to skip it, I will not be talking about lore during the farming. Instead, I will be talking about the way this build is progressing, why I've added magic to it, and I'll be talking about overall a little bit about my philosophy of builds and how it changed due to the patch, but most importantly because of the new downloadable content and the bosses, because that did change the approach that I had to take to my builds. So hopefully you find that interesting, but if you don't, by all means go ahead and skip the farming. Since there will be a little bit of farming, I've decided to leave that in. Okay, so we are back in Firelink, and let's talk to Knight Lothric of Karim. And he's still stalking Anastasia. And he tells us he's glad to see us, but he doesn't really sound genuine. And then he mentions Trusty Patches, who, if he's talking about Patches the Hyena from Demon Souls, we know that he can't be trusted. And we know that if we ever meet him and if we let him live, it's probably because he has some good items to sell us. So it sounds like Patches, a meeting with Patches is in our future. Alright. Then he's also going to tell us, he says our futures are murky. Let's not be too friendly now. So this is obviously a veiled threat. When he says our futures are murky, he's talking about the future of this specific character. He's basically saying, don't mess with me, watch your back. If you cross me, I will kill you. Alright, and let's talk to the crestfallen warrior. And it sounds like he can't wait to go hollow. So his depression is setting in. I think he needs some Ambien. Alright, so let's talk to Griggs. And Griggs is sort of soft-spoken, but Griggs has got quite a bit of game, which is not immediately obvious, because if you look at his dialogue, he starts talking about his shortcomings, he starts talking about a lack of belief in being able to find Logan, and even if he does, being able to come back to Firelink Shrine in one place. So he doesn't have a lot of belief in himself, which leads us to believe, or leads us to think that he's not a very powerful or a very strong magician. But we will find out that that's actually not the case, or at least the game will let us know that. Alright, so what's going to happen in the next minute or so, guys, is that I am going to think about going into the catacombs to fight the boss there, but then I decide not to do that, and instead I decide to go get an item from Griggs, because I do have 23,000 souls, because I wanted to buy this ring and show it to you guys. So instead of going into the catacombs, you'll see me turn around right here and decide, no, let's go get the ring and let's go talk to Griggs himself instead, and let's go into Blight Town. Alright, so the item that I am going to get from Griggs in a little bit here it's called the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring. And if you look at the description for that item, it says that it is only given to the best or the most advanced magicians in the Vinheim Dragon School. So, in spite of the fact that Griggs, like I said, it's kind of shy and soft-spoken, doesn't seem to have a lot of confidence, apparently he's got a little bit of game. Otherwise, he would not have been giving the two rings, both the Dragon Crest Ring and the Bellowing Dragon Crest Ring. Alright, and the way I like to use the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring, which I prefer over the Bellowing Dragon Crest Ring, is to increase the time for spells, and actually it will also affect pyromancies as well. So we are going to get an item in this video as well called Power Within, which is going to allow you to do more damage for about 60 seconds, about a minute, at the cost of a depleting health bar. But when you have the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring equipped, the amount of your life that is depleted is a little bit less. What I should say is that your life bar is depleted at a shorter rate because you're wearing the ring, and the ring extends the duration of the spell. So you're going to be losing the same amount of health, but you'll be losing it over a longer amount of time. So it's as if the life depletion rate is about half of what it would be without the ring. Alright, then the other thing that I wanted to do in this video is, since this is supposed to be a secrets and lore playthrough, is to go get some secret loot. And I definitely would say that this is obscure or secret because it took me a long time to notice that there was actually some humanity here in the Valley of Drakes. And you will see it, but there is going to be a very small cave opening right next to this drake here. And if you try to obtain the humanity in early game, you might get lucky and you might get it. But typically I get hit right after I come out of the cave. I don't here, but typically I either get bit or the drake will shoot some lightning at me. And that'll kill you if, right at the beginning of the game. But now I have enough health and enough vitality that I can take a couple of hits. So, as a matter of fact, I'm feeling so feisty here that I'm going to get some of the loot that I didn't get earlier on for fear of this undead dragon. And that is a Stora's Straight Sword and the Dragon Crest Shield. And as you can see, even with the Dark Woodgrain Ring equipped, which allows me to evade a little bit for a little bit longer, I still took a shot from the undead dragon. But I was able to survive it because now I have quite a bit more life than I did at the beginning of the game. Now, one interesting tidbit about dragons, they are undead. So that means that a dragon can be born with the dark sign. Otherwise, why would there be an undead dragon? So I have yet to be able to place that fact into the overall lore of the game. I don't think it makes sense so far to me why there would be dragons with the dark sign, because as we found out earlier in the game, at the beginning of the game, the dark sign is sort of related to humans. So I don't know where undead dragons come from. Maybe dragonkind has a different kind of mechanism for turning undead. Maybe it's not the dark sign that brands those dragons that are going to become undead. Maybe it's something else. But there are undead dragons in Dark Souls, and you will meet actually one other one later in the game. Alright, so we are making our way down to Blight Town. And we are in human form. So, and I'm going to equip the Hornet Ring, and that is because as soon as you reach the swamp area while you are in human form, you are going to be attacked or invaded by a black phantom. So let me take care of these crag spiders first. And these are my least favorite character or enemy in the game. They're just kind of a pain. They're always in the way. And they're not very powerful, but they're just, to me, they're just kind of a pain to kill. Alright, so that is what appears to be a butcher in training. And she's got the butcher knife, and she also has a plank shield. And as you can tell, with the Hornet Ring, and after a stab, and after doing a two-handed strong attack, she went down quite easily. Alright, so let me tell you a little bit about that character. That character happens to be Mildred the Man-Eater. And we met some butchers in a previous episode, And we were told by the developers that those butchers, who are actually cannibals, but they look like bodybuilders, are pretty buff, that the butchers are female. And they did wear the sack, and they did have a butcher knife as well as a stake. So, Mildred, the man-eater, also has the butcher knife and also has the sack, but she's not buffed yet. So apparently she hasn't started bodybuilding, or she hasn't started ingesting hormones, whatever it is. Maybe she's just trying to be train to be a bodybuilder. But whatever it is, she looks a little bit different from the female man-eaters that or butchers that we met in the depths. Anyway, that character actually started out as a developer joke. When the developers were first testing the game, one developer put that character together, and he would invade other developers with it, and I guess tried to instill fear into their hearts. And they thought it would be sort of a neat Easter egg to leave in the game. The fact that Mildred, who started out as a joke for the developers, actually was left in the game. Alright, so I'm going to get a couple of items here. You just saw me get an armor set, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. You also saw me get a remedy spell. And I just got the Crimson set. I also got a catalyst, and then I also got a remedy spell. And the remedy spell is the reason why I went to 16 intelligence in this build. It's so that I'm able to actually use that spell. And that spell will clear poison and toxin from your system. So when you're down here in Blight Town, it is very, very handy to have that spell. And the Crimson set is one of the best light sets in the game. It can be upgraded with Twinkling Titanite, and it does provide you a fair amount of physical defense after you've maxed it out. But what's really important about the Crimson set is that it has curse resistance, and it actually has a decent amount of curse resistance. So if you're worried about being cursed, either in a boss fight or later on in a specific area of the game, and you like to use light armor, well, you can go ahead and you can use the Crimson set, and it will provide you with good physical defense. It's light, and it will also give you a little bit of curse resistance. Alright, so we haven't started farming we haven't started farming yet. But I am going to clear this area of leeches. These are giant leeches, and they have the chance to drop a couple of items that are pretty important. They drop large Titanite shards, but in addition to that, they also drop green Titanite shards. They drop large Titanite shards one at a time, but when they drop green Titanite shards, they actually drop them 5 at a time. So the giant leeches are probably the best way to farm green Titanite shards, because you can get them 5 at a time. I mean, you can also farm blue chunks and break them down. You'll be able to do that later in the game. But in early game, with a lot of humanity, which will improve your item finding rate, or the drop rate from enemies, you should be able to get quite a few of the large Titanite drops very quickly. And we need large Titanite shards to upgrade our weapon to +10. Alright, so in a little bit here, we are going to get sort of a special weapon that has a little bit of lore related to it, and that is I believe it's the class of item it is. It's a curved greatsword, and it's called a server. And the server, it's the item description says that it's imbued with a frightful heretical energy that will absorb HP upon a foe's death. So this item will actually allow you to sort of regain your life a little bit as you attack. And there are a couple of items throughout the game that do that. I think the butcher knife also, it's not told in the item description, but the butcher knife does also let you absorb a little bit of health. And there's a ring later on that you can find that will let you do that in a shield. But it's interesting to note that the server and the butcher knife, both of which are found in the swamp, will allow you to recover your life a little bit when you attack. So I don't know if that's related to the relationship that the swamp has with humanity and fire. And I'm actually the next video is going to be pure lore about pyromancy and the flame, and it will close out basically the pyromancy lore, which we're not going to follow, but I will try to close it out in the next video. Okay, so we found a sort of a hidden area. I don't want to call it a secret area. Most people know about it, but it's sort of a hidden area in the game, and it's the path that leads to Ash Lake. And this area is called the Great Hollow, and it's basically a gigantic tree trunk that you have to descend very carefully, and along the way you're going to have to deal with some curse frogs, but most importantly you're going to have to really watch your step. There are a lot of crystal lizards here, and in a future video we'll come back here and I will show you the best place to farm the leeches. But there is also a ring, and that's the Cloranthy Ring. And it's actually a very useful ring. It has the same buff as the Grasscrest shield. So if you put the Cloranthy Ring on, it will actually increase your stamina regeneration rate. And it's an ancient ring engraved with a large green flower and of unknown origin. It kind of has the same color as the stone set, and the stone set also supposedly is imbued with magic. So anything that relates to ancient magic that it's sort of greenish, sort of related to nature, is going to be related or tied to Ulysses. So, and we'll talk about more a little bit later on. And you guys just saw I believe this is my second death with the walkthrough, and it was bound to happen. I am going to have little missteps here, back and forth, and I actually had quite a bit of humanity and quite a bit of souls, and I have to apologize here, guys. My bloodstain was not where it was supposed to be. My bloodstain was in a completely different place from where I fell, or where I jumped off to get the Cloranthy Ring. So I had a little bit of a spaz attack here because I could not find my my bloodstain, and so I just started picking up loot. But in reality, what I was doing is I was looking for my bloodstain, trying to figure out where it was. So eventually what I ended up doing, guys, so that I didn't know how long it was going to take me to find my bloodstain, or if I was going to be able to find it, or worst case, I could have fallen and I could have died if while looking for my bloodstain. So I ended up giving up, and I ended up stopping the video. And then it took me about 2 to 3 minutes of sort of frantic wandering around, and then I finally found my bloodstain, which happened to be on a branch, sort of in between where this area is and where the bonfire is, and it was just a crazy location for my bloodstain to be. But I apologize here, guys. That was obviously an unplanned death, and worse yet, it was unplanned that I would not be able to find my bloodstain. But that's the risk that you run when you come into the Great Hollow. Just because there are, it's a little bit tricky, and there are so many areas where you could fall, and you never know where the game is going to, I guess, put your bloodstain. So that was a little piece of advice for me to you. If you're down here, be very careful, and if you fall, sometimes it's not very straightforward where your bloodstain is going to be. And by the way, here I am doing something that is absolutely stupid and crazy. I'm standing in this cursed cloud, and I took a little bit of curse damage, and I'm lucky that the Pyromancer set has a tiny bit of curse resistance, and that's the only reason that I didn't die. And again, a lot of this is due to my frantic looking and searching for my bloodstain and my souls in the middle of a recording. I just was not prepared to die in the Great Hollow. I normally have no issues with this area. But I would recommend, like I'm doing, do a couple of things if you do need to be in this area for an extended amount of time. If you're first time you're going through it, number one, you can use full control, and number two, take the advice that I mentioned earlier, which, like an idiot, I'm not taking here. Wear the Crimson Set armor, because the Crimson Set armor does have curse resistance. So, alright guys, well, I am going to cut the video out here in just a second, and you can see there that I almost died, but I am picking up quite a bit of loot, so I guess I am showing you where a lot of the loot in the game is. And here's a red Titanite chunk coming up. This one's a little bit of a tricky drop. You want to make sure that you drop a little bit to the left of the center of the branch, otherwise you'll slip off to the side. So I went almost halfway through this level, and I still could not find my bloodstain. But I'll stop the video, and we'll come back with my bloodstain when we're back. Alright, so as you can see by the number of humanity and the amount of souls that I have, I was able to find my bloodstain. And let me tell you guys, I am letting out a huge sigh of relief, because frankly, it would have felt pretty bad, and it would have been pretty embarrassing if I would have lost all of that humanity and all of those souls because I was careless and I wasn't looking, and I fell off a pretty safe branch after I got the Cloranthy Ring in the Great Hollow. So, alright, but enough about that. I'm glad that it didn't take me that long to find my souls. I am going to be doing some farming, so it's going to take me about 5 minutes or so feel free to skip ahead 5 minutes. I promise you I'm not going to talk about lore or secrets at all, so you won't miss anything. What I am going to talk about is my philosophy of builds, or how my thinking about builds has changed with the new downloadable content. And I'll be doing that while I farm leeches to try to take this great scythe to +10. Alright, so my old philosophy for how to advance a character in Dark Souls was to rely on two things. Number one, elemental weapons, and number two, the Darkwood Granary. So elemental weapons have a property of giving you their maximum damage right off the bat as soon as you ascend them, because they don't have any scaling. So normal weapons, you get more, they get stronger as you ascend them, but they also get stronger with some kind of attribute that they scale with, either strength or dexterity or intelligence or faith or something like that. So anyway, by using elemental weapons, I was able to do quite a bit of damage, and I was able to use up the points that I wasn't using for strength or dexterity because I didn't care about scaling. I would use those points normally mostly for vitality and a little bit for endurance. And then I would put on the Darkwood Grain Ring and a heavy armor, and I happen to like the Black Iron set, and I would be ready. I would basically be a tank build that was incredibly mobile because I would have Hobble's Ring and the Darkwood Grain Ring. So I would have a lot of vitality, heavy armor, but I would also have fast roll. And it didn't matter if the elemental weapons didn't do a huge amount of damage by the time we got to the end boss, because I had a lot of vitality and I was able to evade and I was able to tank damage. So what ended up happening is that on my builds, I started to rely a little bit too much on tanking. And I would toss some evading here and there, but I would, because I was using elemental weapons, I wasn't doing a lot of damage, but I didn't care because if it was going to take me a long time, I could tank the damage. So I was sort of a hybrid build. I wasn't a true tank build because true tank builds have very, very heavy shields and very, very heavy weapons that can deal a lot of damage. So they may only do one attack, but they're going to take a huge chunk out of that boss's health bar. But that really wasn't my build. Anyway, that was my old philosophy. So then the new downloadable content came out. So I am sure you guys did the same thing. Like many of you, I took my go-to build that I had used to finish the game many times, and I rushed through the game, and I went and attacked the downloadable content with my go-to build, and then I got my ass kicked severely. And I found out very quickly that elemental weapons don't work in the new downloadable content, and that because of the patch, the Darkwood Grain Ring didn't let you wear heavy armor and have the fast roll anymore. So that meant that in order to keep the fast roll, I needed endurance, and that also meant that I couldn't use elemental weapons. I needed to ascend weapons through the normal path with weapons with high scaling, and by using either high strength or high dexterity, I would end up being able to do enough damage. So I really didn't want to give up the fast roll, guys. And as a matter of fact, I'm back to wearing the Darkwood Grain Ring quite a bit. But what ended up happening with my new builds, my new philosophy of builds, and you guys are seeing this in this build, is to keep my vitality low, to keep my endurance high, to keep my dexterity as high as I can, and to use a light weapon that has high scaling. And that's because I like the fast roll. So the other thing that I was forced to do as I played more and more of the downloadable content is that I did have to go into the boss fights with a different game plan because I didn't have the heavy armor anymore. So I actually got better at evading and and not relying on tanking so much. Alright, so that's sort of my overall philosophy and builds. I don't know if that was interesting, but I thought I'd throw it out there. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. And get your thoughts on how you like to make characters and how you like to advance builds. But as far as this specific build, I threw a little bit of magic in there because I thought there would be some newer players maybe that were watching this walkthrough, and I happen to think that magic is useful, not if you completely max it out, but if you take magic up to 16, you're going to be able to wield a lot of spells that are they're sort of elementary spells. They're not the high level spells, but they're very, very useful. And in a place like Blight Town, or later on in a place like the Painted World of Ariamis, spells are going to come in quite handy, especially the remedy spell. And having intelligence of 16 not only will allow you to use the remedy spell, but it will allow you to buff your weapon with a magic weapon spell, and it will also allow you to wield all of the ancient magic spells that we're going to get in a couple of videos from now. So that's the reason why I use magic for this build, is because I think it's useful for those folks that haven't played Dark Souls a ton. It does help you out in a couple of different situations, and it really doesn't detract from the overall build. You can still be heavy in dexterity and heavy in endurance with just a little bit of magic thrown in. Alright guys, so that's enough about builds. It probably went a little bit longer than the 5 minutes that I said that I was going to talk about builds, so sorry about that. I guess it was more like 7 minutes, but we are now on our way to pick up my favorite pyromancy in the game, and that pyromancy is called Power Within. And let's get back to the lore. So Power Within, if you read the item description, Power Within is a spell that was made by Carmina. And Carmina is a special kind of a pyromancer. The game tells us that Carmina was Solomon's most accomplished pupil, and that she took pyromancy in a different direction. And she actually used the link or the tie, the relationship between humanity and fire to take pyromancy in a different direction. And the pyromancies that she made, and she made Iron Flesh, she made Flesh Sweat, and she also made Power Within. Those pyromancies all have the sort of the characteristics of changing your humanity into some useful attribute that doesn't have anything to do with fire, but actually changes your character. So she took humanity or souls, and she manipulated the fire or the pyromancy somehow, and she ended up making these awesome spells. So Power Within, for example, is going to buff your damage output at the expense of a depleting health bar. Iron Flesh will give you infinite poise and will increase your defense by a ton, by a huge amount. You're almost like a walking stone, a walking monument. So it's sort of like the ultimate tank build for about 60 seconds. And then Flash Sweat makes you sweat more profusely, and that supposedly protects you from fire. So those are interesting things. They also hint at the relationship of the fire with pyromancy, and maybe that's what Laurentius of the Great Swamp meant when he said that there is an inherent relationship between the swamp and nature and pyromancy. So maybe he was talking about the link between humanity and fire, and how the pyromancers are able to take this relationship and turn it into offensive spells. The other interesting thing that we learn when we read the item descriptions for pyromancers is that not all of them originated from this area. Some of them actually originated from other worlds. Alright, but enough of that. Let me show you where Power Within is, and we're going to kill this enemy. This enemy is called a parasitic wall hugger, and you can kite him with a bow, but what I like to do is I like to come to the back, the way I showed you, and just attack him from the back. And again, that's because I don't use bows, and I don't use a lot of ranged projectile attacks. I know that makes the game, some areas of the game, a little bit more difficult, but I just don't do it, guys. Sorry, it's just not my cup of tea. Alright, so the last thing I want to show you guys is a very, very popular shield, which is the Eagle Shield. And this was, and I actually think it still is one of the best shields in the game. It's a great shield, so you cannot use it to parry, but it doesn't have really high requirements. So it's the great shield with the lowest amount of requirements. So that means that with not a lot of strength, I think you need 16 strength to wield it, you can have a shield that's super stable. In this latest patch, the developers reduced the physical damage defense of the Great Shield from 100% block to 95% block. But you know what, guys? It doesn't matter. It's still an awesome shield. Alright, guys, that's going to be it for this video. This is the Tech Phantom signing off.